All right. So, thank you everybody for joining us here today. My name is Matt Owensby. I'm the Director of Marketing Services here at Incident IQ, and I am joined by Edwin Walker. He is an implementation specialist here at Incident IQ, working with districts all across the country. And we have a guest, one of those districts from New Jersey. We have Nicholas Vinny from, remind me the district that you're from.
Teaneck Public Schools.
Teaneck Public Schools in Teaneck, New Jersey, correct?
Correct.
Fantastic. And you are kind enough to take some time of your day. You just got started up there in Teaneck. School started this week.
Correct. Yes, we started on Wednesday.
Fantastic. And, here we're just talking a little bit today about that beginning of the year crunch, right? We see at Incident IQ, we are a help ticketing and asset management platform, and we have a lot of data about what time of the year is busiest for tech support teams, and maybe not surprisingly, the beginning of the year sees the biggest amount of support tickets submitted by teachers and students while in those first couple weeks getting everything up and running. So, Nick, what are some of the issues that you see come up the most at the beginning of the school year? What do people struggle with at the beginning of the year?
I think the biggest struggle tends to be the getting back into the routine of things, remembering how we did things before we left 2 months ago. A lot of those issues stem from that, and it's just natural. We go 2 months without using something, and now we jump right back in, and we're trying to remember. So it's a lot of giving the staff members assistance, giving the students assistance, and just getting them to remember some of those processes and systems that we had been using in the previous year.
I see. And if you were talking to a new director of technology or a new tech team that was looking to hit the ground running successfully at the beginning of the year, what are some of the keys to success at the beginning of the year, when it comes to getting teachers and students stood up successfully at the start of a school year?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is being dynamic, right? We don't want to have a set plan and just be sticking to that set plan and ignoring some emergencies that might come up. That's probably the first thing, and then communication. That is huge, and it's a two-way street. It's communicating down with your team to see not only what you need them to get done that might be a priority from the superintendent or somebody else from central office, but also to see what they need help with. Sometimes you just gotta, as a director, you gotta roll up those sleeves and get out in the field and help them out and ensure that we're not impacting instruction. And then I think the last thing is really avoiding silos, because once you have those silos and we hit this moment of chaos like the start of the school year, and that person isn't around because they're either something happened at home and they aren't able to come in, or even they're busy with another staff member and they can't help a different staff member with an issue. We want to avoid those moments from happening.
So, when we're talking about silos, what are some ways that a technology team, a support team can break down those silos and have better visibility over these kind of mission critical support issues?
So it's a lot of communication, it's a lot of documentation, it's a lot of taking the time to meet and having conversations about, what do you do, because as a new director coming in, um, you kind of have these conversations with folks and you're saying, okay, so what is it that you do? And the questions that I like to ask is, who else knows to do this? And if it's just one person, then all right, next time you go to do it, let's start writing down what it is you're doing, or let's pull somebody in and have them watch what you do. And then the next time you go to do it, let's have them do it. So this way we can build up that knowledge and that ability so that should the opportunity come and we need you to be in two places at once, we don't have to do that. We can have somebody else step up and help out.
That makes sense. So when we talk about that's kind of building process, right, and having visibility over processes. So in your districts, in your experience, where do you where do you keep this knowledge? Where do you how do you kind of collect, store, and share this kind of process knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, there are through the years that's evolved, right? So it used to be like just a Word document, and you would share out the Word document. Back when I first started, it would be you'd email it to somebody, and if you had a flash drive, that would be a really awesome thing to share it with on. But now we have a lot better tools out there, and they can range anywhere from free. You could use the Google Drive with your Office 365, or Dropbox, whatever cloud service it is that you prefer. That's one way. And then, we can go into the more expensive options. I've been in a district where we used a SharePoint site, or, we've used our help desk center. Incident IQ is one of those spots. But that's what drew us there, was that it's a repository for things like that.
Fantastic. Now, Edwin, as an implementation specialist, you're helping out not one district, but maybe a handful of districts, maybe dozens of districts get stood up at the beginning of the year, and not only that, you were at DeKalb County Public Schools in Georgia for a number of years. From your vantage, kind of on both sides, from being in the field and then being here at Incident IQ, what are some of the things that you've noticed about schools at the beginning of the year?
I think just piggybacking off of what Nick said, definitely communication is one of the biggest things. Um, Password resets, that's one of the biggest things. Most of my tickets came in from password resets beginning of the year. People forgot their passwords, and allowing them the ability to be able to go in and set up their own passwords and reset things helped our support center, definitely. But also going back to what he said about repositories within our group, over the summer we did a lot of hiring, and having the knowledge base there for the other members that came in, having them available and ready to be able to take some of these calls and take some of this load off of us was a big thing also. So a lot of it, like I said, is communication within your team and within the county itself, the district, coming down from the board on down, just making sure that you are available for the kids and for the teachers and the stakeholders.
I see. So, obviously you can only be in one place at one time, and you get this avalanche of support requests at the beginning of the year. Nick, how do you prioritize what needs to be fixed immediately versus what can maybe wait a day or two? How do you go about prioritizing all of the tickets that come into your team?
So, one of the big things that I believe in, I have like three like North Stars, right? So the first North Star, and it'll always supersede anything, is, minimizing the impact of technology, creating loss of instruction, right? So that's always the first priority. We're always making sure that, when we're looking at an issue, the question we're asking is, how is this impacting loss of instruction? So if it's something like a projector not working and the teacher needs that for the lesson, then we're going to prioritize that over something that needs to be printed out for tomorrow's lesson. Um, and then the next North Star that I believe in is the superintendent. If the superintendent has a need, then we're gonna prioritize that. And then finally, it's the BA. If the BA has a priority, we're gonna prioritize that. But it's in that order. It's loss of instruction, superintendent, and then BA, and then everything else after that we can figure out.
I see. Um, and when it comes to, you know, delegating these tasks, is it something that you spend a lot of time manually doing? How do you get your work assigned to your different team members?
Having a ticketing system that has rules that allows it to be assigned is definitely a huge help. We're still in migrating, and we are fortunate that our old system did have location-based rules. So that is definitely a huge help, so that the techs that are being assigned to the building, they automatically get the ticket, and if it needs to be escalated up, they'll escalate it up as needed.
I see. So, you're going to get you know, a mountain of help requests probably, at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. But are there any ways to um, minimize or divert certain help requests? How can we uh, set teachers and staff up for success to maybe resolve some issues before they even reach your desk? What are some ways that you can kind of interject and help people get their problem solved so they don't need to reach your desk?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think a knowledge base is really the big way to do that. If you can have this repository where staff, when they have a problem, they know they can go and they can check and see if there's maybe a guide or FAQ that might be able to help them out is definitely a huge way of minimizing that avalanche that comes onto you, for sure.
If I can
Yeah.
And how
if
do
I can interject right
go
there,
ahead.
and along with that guide, one thing we did was have quick hit sheets that these are there's a website, but you can quickly hit these top troubles, and you have webinar videos that can quickly 2-minute videos that show you how to fix things yourself. That's one of the biggest things we did to try to help out and mitigate some things that may come into us, um, that automatically help them fix their own troubles.
Right, and that's a great point, Edwin. To have it where it's not just text based to whatever you're putting out there. If you could have it where it's text, where it's also video, because we're all different learners out there. So to have it on different mediums is definitely huge.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of free and kind of easily available tools that can help you achieve that. You've got tools like Loom, or here in Instant IQ we have our screen recorder tool, which makes it. I think those kind of tools help cut down on that redundancy a lot, because you're not having to record the same video dozens of times and send it to users individually, right? You can record it once, make sure that it's kind of embedded maybe on a quick hit sheet like Edwin talked about, where you can record it once, you can attach it to an issue type and say, if you need to reset your password, here's the route to do that. And so instead of showing people how to, instead of creating that redundancy where you're having to record the same video over and over, just recording it once can save a lot of time on both the technician side and the teacher side. And like you said, Nick, with different learners, I think there are a lot of tools now, especially in this overwhelming age of emergent AI. I'm putting quotes around it because I severely doubt the intelligence part of AI, but it does allow you to kind of create these automatic transcripts, right? So maybe it cuts down on that. I don't have to type up manual instructions. I can record a video, get that transcript, and now I've got a written guide and a video guide right there. So that's great. Um, Moving on, when it comes to your staff makeup, right? And I know a lot of districts, in the last few years have received maybe thousands of new devices in their classroom, and the amount of technology in schools has just grown, but not the amount of technicians has not necessarily grown in kind. Nick's shaking his head there. He says he's familiar with that. So what are some ways to kind of address that support gap? How do you keep up with the amount of new technology if you don't necessarily have the budget to increase that headcount?
It's about having the systems and processes in place that can help you to be efficient. That's really what it comes down to, because we're only human and there's only so much that we can do. And being able to have systems that can automate things or to, like we talked about that centralized repository, if, the less places people have to go to get things, the better it is. So, yeah, for me, it's about the systems and processes for sure.
Fantastic. Edwin, anything to add there?
No, definitely. Going back to what Nick said in the beginning, is having cross-trained people that can also help. They may not know exactly, but they can at least come in and lend a hand on most of the things that you need. Some of the small lifting and even some of the heavy lifting that can come in and help. And having management that understands that we're not, we're all in this together and we're not doing the work. We are here trying to do the work to the best of our ability, and they understand that. That's one thing.
Now, in your experience, Edwin, or your experience, Nick, do you enlist the help of anybody who may not directly be in the technology department, but might be, kind of a pro user of technology? How does staff or library staff or even student run tech teams, are there any other people in your district that you can kind of maybe deputize or enlist to help you in this support task?
I'll let Nick go.
100%. Oh, sorry.
No, go
Go,
ahead.
Edwin.
No.
All right. Yeah, 100%. We're very fortunate here. We have, we enlisted the help of the media center coordinators and also some tech teachers have helped out too. It takes a village. It really does. There's a lot to be done, especially as you mentioned earlier, with all these new devices coming in. And without us, expanding our departments, we need to rely on the help wherever we can get it, for sure.
I would say definitely in the cab we did the same thing. Train the trainers, especially the media center technicians, that's specialists. They helped a lot. Also, we had a what's it called? The Student Center program in a couple schools. We had a couple of our ITTs that led that with the school resource people that had students come throughout the day to come in and help with some of the repairs, some of the ticketing. So that was some of the big things. And I must shout out Southwest DeKalb and Stevenson High School. They led the program big time in DeKalb County for doing that.
And I love the existence of those kind of you know programs for students, right? Because that is a really powerful way to give students that hands-on experience that is enormously valuable outside of the classroom, right? That can set kids up for success. Uh, you know, that can maybe set them on an entirely different career path,
Definitely.
right? Um,
Absolutely.
so that's fantastic. Do you have any student-led tech teams in your district currently, Nick?
At this time, we don't. I've worked with teams like that in my previous districts, but currently here it hasn't been created.
Got it. Um, so when it comes to kind of making sure that support is um, readily available, right? And that you don't have to look too far for assistance. How do you make sure that teachers and staff know where to go and have tech support just you know easily accessible and easily reachable without too much effort? How do you kind of increase the visibility of your tech support?
So, in my experience, it hasn't really been too much of a need to increase our visibility. Usually, people people tend to find out how to get in contact with us pretty quick. But there are things that you do to promote it. We have a web page with our ticketing system. We have a web page also for our department where it lists everybody in the department where they support, how to contact them. And then it's about establishing, the relationships at the building level and the techs, getting the techs to go speak to the building administrators, being walking out and about, even when, they want to, work on something real quick in their office, like, hey, let's just take 10 minutes, let's walk around the building, let people see you, because you're going to get a lot of people to talk to you. If they see you, they're going to grab you and they're going to get you, because otherwise they might be too busy to put in that ticket or that email. So that's really the ways that we've tried to tackle that.
And if I could jump in here, one thing we did at DeKalb, especially when we went one to one, we went through every school in the county putting up posters and bulletin boards with QR codes, letting them know directly how to reach us for support tickets, and walk them through the steps on the bulletin board of how to put in support tickets. So that was one key thing that helped us, where they can just kids in this hallway can scan the QR code and be right to the ticketing system. And with our previous ticket system before that, we just changed the icon. We kept the same icon, but changed the URL directed to Internet IQ,
Mm.
so they was familiar with how to put a ticket in, and it stayed that same direction.
So having that, physical visibility, walking around the building, making yourself visible, and then, having, I think QR codes are a really powerful way to make sure that those resources are available if your primary device is down, right? Because, luckily most people have a secondary device in their pocket, camera ready. Don't even have to remember a URL. Just point your camera at that QR code, and you're right there in that ticketing system. So, in your experience, you're a director of technology now with a number of years of experience. What are some common mistakes that tech teams make? What are some of the kind of common hurdles or stumbling blocks that you might have encountered in your experience working in K-12 technology?
Well, especially this time of the year, I think the number one thing is trying not to get overwhelmed by the sheer volume and the immediacy of everything. Sometimes we get so caught up in that, and then it knocks us off our game. So I think that's the primary thing. And then I think the next thing is not jumping to a solution, making sure you're asking those probing questions, making sure you're really getting the details of what's going on, because you could really double, triple your time trying to solve something if you're not asking the right questions. And the last one, this is something that I was really guilty, especially early on, is not trying to get caught up in the why something's being done. Why does the teacher need this? Why does the student need that? That could be a very dangerous road to go down. Just focus on what we can control, and that's getting whatever the issue is resolved and getting the instruction to resume.
I see. Edwin, anything to add
No,
there?
he hit it all. Just mainly focusing on the trouble, seeing what you can get fixed, knowing what you can't, and so from my side, the technician side or the admin side, having the support from the directors and from the county to be able to do our job is the main thing, and feeling supported is the main thing. I think a lot of times we want to fix things, and sometimes, like he said, they may get caught up in why, but we as technicians, we're trying to make sure we accommodate the people because we're the closest to the people at that time. So having the support of the directors and CT, CIOs and everything, making sure we have those
Hmm.
support.
So that's an interesting question. How do you get that support? How do you what kind of information does leadership need from their tech teams to be able to better give that support, better get that buy-in, and kind of work more closely alongside the tech team? What do they need to know?
I'll jump in. Is from my previous career. I think part of it is if you as a technician have the trust of them, that's one thing. Secondly, if you are noting you're documenting what you're doing, you can also prove what you're doing. One thing I learned was if it's in the ticket, if you note it, you can always document what you did, and the results come from that. As long as you can do that, that should suffice, and let them understand that you're not doing anything for yourself. You're doing it all for the district and for the kids. I think at the end of the day, if it's for the district and for the kids, um, and you're not neglecting anything else, uh, they should trust you in what you're saying and what you're doing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And Edwin, if I could just elaborate on that. So, in my previous district, one of the things I used to say, and I love that you said that you put it in the ticket and you documented it because, you know, techs would come to me, and in my previous district, I was a manager, so I was kind of like that middleman. And the techs would come to me and they'd say, "Oh, we have all these computers with these problems." And the first words out of my mouth would be, "Well, where's the tickets?" Like without the tickets, I don't have that documented proof of this problem where I could say, "All right, well, this Chromebook has a trackpad issue because 40% of our Chromebooks are having a trackpad issue of this model." So, you know, to be able to document that as a director, as that person who's higher up, to have that documentation of the problem, and then having a system that can report it and get you the data that you need, so this way you could bring it to the people to justify why you're making this decision and why you need to make a change, is huge.
And that brings up a good point, right? Because, I feel like getting that information coming with the receipts, right, is a lot easier when you are working in a system that kind of automatically collects those receipts, right? And you can kind of, run reports super easily, and you're not having to do keyword searches in your email inbox and kind of
Right.
manually collect all of the, search for help, search for trackpad, and manually collect those emails. But if you are working within a system that collects that kind of structured data, so boom, boom, and a couple of clicks, and you can say, look, here are all the trackpad issues. I filtered it down by model. As you can see, we're having a trackpad issue with this model of Chromebook. So having something that kind of automatically comes behind you and is collecting those receipts as you go. I've heard that from a number of districts, how, just coming equipped with those receipts and with that um, structured data of the work that your team does makes things like, you know, um, staff allocation, hiring. It just makes that a lot easier if you've got the receipts to back it up.
Yep. And it's not just about the receipts because a lot of systems have the receipts. It's about the ability to easily pull that data. Some systems, it's really hard to get the data that you need and report it the way that you want. So it's about finding that mix of both.
Right, because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Those data silos. Having that information is one thing, but to be able to pull it out, to export it, to collect it and share it. What good is it if it just kind of lives within a siloed system? So being able to report on that
Mm.
is super key.
Yep.
Um, any other Any other pieces of advice that you would give to a tech team that might be feeling overwhelmed here at the beginning of the school year? Anything that you would, pass on to a younger version of yourself or somebody just getting started in the field?
I can jump in. So far
Yeah,
as
go ahead,
so far
Edwin.
as a
That's fine.
technician and admins, summer work, summer work, summer work. If you can get most of your work done in the summer, whatever you can catch up on, trying to be prepared for a lot of stuff, I think that helps a lot. Anything you can do for open house to get parents and teachers ready beforehand helps a lot also. Um, so I think anything prep wise you can do really helps a lot. So it mitigates a lot of stuff coming in from the beginning. And then once again, what I mentioned before was webinars I mean, like he said, you have different learners, but you can always point back to this and they can always see what they have in front of them. And it helps a lot to cut down on the ticketing and troubles and everything else. So that'd be my younger self, not trying to figure everything out when the fire hits, but getting a lot of it done beforehand.
And I'll take the other side of that. When the fire does hit, it's okay. You're going to get through it. Just tackle what you have in front of you, one thing at a time. My old director in my previous district, he used to always say, just chip away, right? You just got to chip away. We're not gonna make the statue in one day. We just got to keep chipping away, and eventually we'll get through it.
Absolutely. And, I think it goes back to something you said earlier, right? As long as you have that, that priority and those North Stars, right? It makes it very easy to know what to chip away at first, making sure that instructional time is not being disrupted, making sure that senior leadership, your superintendents, right, that they have everything that they need to be successful and they're not, experiencing any blackouts and your BAs as well, right? That third North Star, making sure that kind of everybody's covered in that order of operations to make sure, teaching and learning is uninterrupted because, at the end of the day, I think that's what everybody's here for. Looking forward to, maybe the rest of the year and even beyond. What are some of the I'm gonna say what are some of the things that keep you up at night, but what's what's looming on the horizon? What are some of the things as a tech director that you're having to deal with now that are what are some upcoming challenges that you might be facing?
I mean, I think that everybody in the IT industry at cybersecurity is like first and foremost like that, and by far that's the thing that keeps me up the most. And then after that, as a director, it's just, making sure my team is functioning at a high level, that we're providing the customer service that we're promising to our staff and to our students and families. That I got to make sure my team's happy and that they're working at a high level and that I'm meeting what they want and what they need, so they can do their job to the best of their abilities, for sure.
Absolutely. Um, so when it comes to cybersecurity, right? What are some of the things that your team might be doing to, you know, I mean, it's hard to be everywhere at once, but what are some of the things that your team's doing to kind of mitigate certain, cybersecurity risks in K-12?
So there's the big things, you want to make sure all your software is up to date, your servers are up to date. We're, trying to provide, the least amount of access that we can, giving people what they need, but not giving them the keys to the castle. Making sure that we're training our users on, phishing and different attempts like that, so that when they get those emails that offer them a new Amazon gift card, they're kind of questioning it, or there's principals asking them to send them $100 so they could buy something real quick. I think those are the big things for sure.
Absolutely. Um, Anything else to add before we wrap up? Any final words of wisdom for our audience?
Can I throw one thing in there for your last question? I think
Absolutely.
Nick may be not forgetting, but the one of the biggest things we dealt with, and I know he's dealing with, is testing. Testing is the one of the biggest things. Making sure for myself, I was the Google admin in the district, making sure the devices were available for testing, and that's one of the biggest things. So I wanted to ask Nick that question: How are you dealing with that? In the beginning of the year, you have some of your initial testing, and then coming down towards Thanksgiving and Christmas, you have your middle of the year testing. How are some of your efforts to be ready for that?
Yeah, so now that that's actually one of the benefits of the influx of devices is that it is quite a bit easier for testing, especially with the Chromebooks. Now that every kid has a device, and from the console you can easily push out the most of these assessments have like an app on the console. You can push it out to all your devices. It makes it a lot easier. So now, rather than moving carts all over buildings for multiple weeks, now you're just setting up, for the week that they're doing the testing, you're maybe setting up a location where the students can come if something's wrong with their Chromebook when they go to test, that they can get a spare. So that definitely has changed that aspect for sure.
And when it comes to testing and these kind of essential non-negotiable aspects of technology enriched learning, how do you set up redundancies for that? How do you manage spare devices, and what is your backup plan for to make sure that a student's learning experience is uninterrupted if something unforeseen comes up?
Yeah, so this goes back to your question about enlisting other people to help. We are fortunate enough to have the media center coordinators help us out with that. The students go to those staff members in each building, and they're documenting which kids are taking the Chromebooks, which Chromebook they have, and then which ones are returning it. And then they're also creating the tickets in the system to indicate if a device needs to be repaired, and our techs will then come and get the devices and do the repairs.
Absolutely. And um, let's see. Sorry, Edwin, anything else to add about redundancies and prepping for testing
Well, I
periods?
think one of the big things that we did was running audits to find out what kids did not have devices, what devices maybe were in repair at the time. So having the ability through systems like Incident IQ and other systems, being able to do that, that was one of the biggest things. The audit piece, the spare pool piece, helped out a lot during testing time. So I knew what kids didn't have a device due to any factor, due to the device being in repair, or they didn't get a device yet. Those things like that helped out a lot, knowing what I needed for that testing period.
Right, because we talked about that a little before, right? You know, running those reports maybe a couple weeks after school starts, kind of coming behind yourself and double checking and making sure that no students are slipping through the cracks, that there's no anomalies when it comes to device assignment or students being without a device. I know that can, because students can, arrive at a district late, and you think you've got everything wrapped up at on day one, but, coming back behind on day 10, day 15, that can be really important,
Or
making sure that people are
or
set up for
even or
success.
even a kid, I always refer back to the Google side, but a kid that's not using their device. So I may look and see who hasn't used a device in the last 30 days. Why haven't you used a device? That way I can get the report
Right.
to the school and say these are the kids that may have trouble with their devices, or the devices may not be up to date for testing. So I can look at that and pull those reports and say, okay, these devices have not been updated in the last 30 days, and testing will not run on these devices. So even if they have a device, they may not be using it. A lot of schools right now are going to bring your own device, and they don't use their school device. But when it comes down to testing day, they have to bring the school device, and guess what? It's not updated. So running the audits, being able to run all of that helps out a lot, and having all that reporting available.
Absolutely. Nick, anything to add there?
No, I mean that Edwin, I was literally thinking while Edwin was talking about, even the users who aren't signing in, so you can reach out to them. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a great point. It's not just about what is being used, but what isn't being used, and is it because a student's not in and then the school hasn't reported it, and we can reallocate that device to somebody else who might need it, for sure.
And that feels like a good kind of touchstone of kind of preventative maintenance and that early intervention, right? Because those could be, issues or blind spots that can persist throughout a year unless you're, kind of proactively running those reports, and saving yourself those kind of year-end surprises there.
I give this analogy that I learned a long time ago. Just because the wheel is inflated doesn't mean it doesn't have a nail. So it may still be something going wrong with it. You just don't see it.
Absolutely, and increasing that visibility, I think that is just you know very essential in preventing those blind spots, right, and making sure that you're shining a light in those, the corners of technology usage that might be hiding those kind of persistent issues. I think that can be very valuable. Um, I think that about wraps it up for my stack of questions. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know I've probably asked it twice now, but any other closing thoughts before we sign off, or any other tech directors that might be feeling overwhelmed at the moment? We'll get through it.
Yep. Yeah, we'll get through it.
Chip away one day at a time. All right. Well, thank you so much to Nick Vinny and Edwin Walker for joining me today. For everybody in the audience, I hope you have a smooth beginning of the year as you roll into winter break. And thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, guys.
Take
Take
care.
care.